You are making only 10 to 20K a month with your coaching business, this video is exactly for you because I'm going to teach you exactly how you can transform this business and get it to 50K a month and beyond. Now, why am I so entitled to say this? It's because I've spent multiple months, years in closing, analyzing each sales funnel, went through multiple industries. And to be honest with you, 20K a month as an agency or coaching business owner is not that much. Most likely, your business looks like this. So you've got good leads coming in, you have a couple of calls each day, you're closing deals, you're making good money, right? But at the end of the day, in the bottom of your heart, you feel that this is not enough. You feel that you can do more and you can do better. And even though it looks like on the surface you're making good money, at the end of the day, what you're struggling with is each new client is basically a new problem. Every time you onboard someone, that's just more work on your plate. You're selling your time for money. For example, you're jumping on sales calls yourself. You're making sure that the management and the fulfillment is solely done by you, so on and so forth. Basically a one-man band. And what you find yourself is working 24/7. If that sounds like you, then welcome to this channel, because in this video, I'm going to exactly explain to you how you can transform this business, and most importantly, how can you pluck yourself out of that business. And it's also the solution. The solution is a two-step process. Right. And the good thing here is you don't need fancy CRMs. You don't need a crazy website that you've basically paid $3,000 for, and you don't need a better cam setup. All that you need is you need to have the right systems behind what you're doing. You're very, very good with what you're doing. You're very, very good with the value that you're providing. However, you're very, very bad at running business. And this is exactly where the classic general comes in. For the people who don't know, I've been part of the military, and there was a very, very interesting approach, and something that I learned very, very early on is that there's a strict difference between a general and between an infantry. The infantry is very, very important. Those are the people who are in the trenches. Those are the people who are working actively on what they're doing. They're working actively on driving the war, or essentially in your case, the business forward. However, the infantry can do all the work that they want to. If they're fighting at the wrong front, if they're fighting at the wrong side, if they're fighting at the wrong line, all that hard work is basically going to waste. Doesn't matter how hard they work, which is exactly why you need to step into the role of being a general. A general is someone who has a 5,000-foot view. He plucks himself out of the business and he serves as an actual needle mover and strategist, someone who actually makes sure that the war progresses or makes sure that your business progresses. And it is time for you to step into the role of being a general versus the infantry. Because at the end of the day, you're a business owner and you're not your own employee. Now, how do you actually make this happen? There's two approaches to it, and I'll walk you through both of those. One is automation, which is very, very important because that's basically you automating everything. Everything runs in the background. Everything runs smoothly and, most important, instantaneous. But you also have the outsource part. And I'll walk you through both of those. Let's first of all focus on automation. With automation, the good thing here is you can automate as much as possible. Make sure that your whole business is up to the T and as efficient as possible. Whether that is the customer support, you manually answering DMs in your Instagram channel, all the way through to manually answering customer support requests via email, so on and so forth. That is a big, big, big time eater. And you as the CEO, as the general, shouldn't focus on customer support. A big part of that as well is the sales aspect. Now, if you're spending your time on sales calls, that is obviously not the best way to spend your time. You need not only people in place for that, but most importantly as well, automations behind that. So this runs as smoothly as possible. And if you can't afford a salesperson yet, how do you make sure that you only speak to the right people and they're not wasting your time as the business owner? On the other end, you can also automate a part of the fulfillment. Now, obviously, we'll still have to provide value, and this is where you're good at, this is where you're thriving. But in terms of fulfillment, you can productize your offer. You can make sure that there is a lot of a smoother onboarding process. You don't have to do everything manually. And at the end of the day, you just save yourself that time. And again, the goal here is to take you, pluck yourself from the business and put yourself into the general position. So someone who has that 5,000-foot view, someone who can actually drive the war forward, drive the business forward, instead of just being in the trenches all day long and essentially just being focused on one thing and one thing only. Now, you have two options when it comes to AI automation. You can either learn this yourself, which is basically you going onto YouTube, going onto various different platforms, trying this out yourself. If you've got some background in AI automation, you can definitely do that. Or what you can do is you can outsource it to a proper company. If you'd like Callum and me to take a look at your business, give you a whole AI audit in terms of where does AI fit into your solutions, but most importantly as well, help you scale your coaching business with the use of AI automation, book your call down below. We've got multiple people like you, and if you're stuck at 10, 20K a month, it's time to take a next step. Again, first link in the description. Now let's move on to outsourcing. Outsourcing is going to be a huge part as well for you, because Outsourcing is where you borrow workforce and you borrow someone else's time. Most likely, a whole fulfillment team will be too expensive for you at the 10K a month stage. It is just not possible for you right now because you don't have the capital necessary to actually get a fulfillment team in. Now you have multiple options, right? One big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of coaching business owners benefit from is hiring VAs. And those VAs, they can be used for multiple different approaches, whether that is the classic DM answering, making sure that they understand your inbox, how does that look like, making sure that they set the appointments, whether that is through converting Reels, through converting on Instagram, through converting on YouTube, doesn't really matter. Your VA is going to help you book those appointments. Of course, you need to teach them about that. You need to give them SOPs, so on and so forth. The second aspect of that is also customer support. What we found working really, really well, if you don't want to set up a whole automation, if you don't want to essentially go out there and get expertise to help, you can task VAs with making sure that they take care of their customer support. So answering the DMs, answering, for example, in the school group, some complaints, some queries, some questions where specific resources are, all the way through to essentially making sure that your customer support is on point. So from email all the way through to your DMs, just making sure that that machine is good to go and you do not damage your reputation. Operational tasks, like for example, content, etc., are possible as well. What we found work best is if you tie this into AI automation, because with VAs, usually they do not get the concept of how you want this to happen. They don't really get too much of a grasp on your content strategy, but also most importantly, how your style is, and they don't take it as seriously as you do, of course. Most importantly, what you can hire as well, once you have the capital and once you have the lead flow, is closers. And that is highly dependent on your funnel and your ticket price. If you, for example, have a low ticket, it doesn't make sense to get yourself towards closer. However, if you are that 5, 6, 7, 8K upwards, you can definitely put in a closer in place so you don't have to take the sales calls anymore. Now, this whole concept of automation and outsourcing ties on the concept of being busy versus looking busy. Most entrepreneurs, most coaching business owners, most agency owners out there, they are just looking busy. They're just not actually busy. Busy means business, which is good. But if you spend your time on tasks that do not drive revenue, then you don't have any business, right? So if your calendar looks like this, which is where you have some sales calls, you then check ads, you then answer support, then you do a bit of content strategy, then you do the fulfillment, you have multiple calls with your students, a Q&A session, and then you go to the gym. You've basically now spent 10 hours, and only 3 of those 10 hours have been spent on product, which is what you enjoy doing and which is your reputation. All the other time spent is on either meaningless tasks or on sales calls. Yes, content is important, but that's also 2 hours of your day. So nothing too massive. If you spend the majority of your time on neither revenue generating activities, not just sales calls, but I'm talking about content strategy, getting it out there, or marketing, then you do not have a business, you are employed. That's a hard reality that most entrepreneurs need to understand. But the goal here is for you to free up that time. So how can you automate and outsource those things? So let's say you automate or outsource the customer support. You outsource the sales calls. So you have now 3 more hours freed up essentially. Now you've got a whole lot of more free time that you can actually put towards driving the business forward, moving the needle, strategizing. Again, back to my previous analogy, being the general. Making sure that you actually push the business forward, that you actually get out there and make it happen instead of being stuck in the trenches like the infantry. Now, once you have that time freed up and you're actually spending that towards driving the business forward, you have to ask yourself, how do you increase the revenue? How do you make more money? Whether that is in your funnel, right? Where does the funnel leak the most? Is it from leads to sales calls that most sales calls don't even show up and you've got a 50% show up rate? How do you increase that? How do you get that from 50 to 80%? If you want to check out one of the earlier videos that I did about how to increase your show up rate, automating your whole sales funnel, you can click the info button right there and it will take you towards that video. Another piece is if you're still doing manual follow-up, how can you automate that? There's tons of different apps, tons of different softwares that you can actually use, point-wise, so on and so forth, all the way through to how do you maximize conversion, how do you maximize sales? So where does your funnel actually leak and how can you then increase that, or how can you essentially eliminate that leakage and increase the amount that goes through your funnel? So whether that is, for example, targeting more leads, doing this all manual, how do you set up an automation? So from 10 leads, you now go to 100 leads a day. And this goes throughout the whole funnel and you can literally work yourself step by step through each area of those and automate or outsource that specific problem. So whether that is you spending an hour on onboarding, that's a pretty poor use of your time as a business owner, as the general. Again, you can also increase ticket size. You can go from selling solely 997 courses to now going to that point of selling 5K, 8K, 10K packages. If you don't know how to do that, that's okay. That's not a problem. We can talk about that. But you need to increase the ticket in order to make more revenue once you're at a certain limit and once you're at a certain capability. You can also expand the team. Now, in terms of expanding the team, that's most likely going to happen once you are at a certain threshold, once you are at that 40, 50,000, because at the end of the day, you will need that cash flow to actually keep yourself upward. Now, in terms of expanding the team, let's say you spend most of your time on content. Put in someone who writes the content for you. Put in a cutter that is going to cut the content for you. So at the end of the day, step by step, you're freeing your time from those tedious tasks and you focus on strategy and structure. That's the goal. So this should have given you a bit of an understanding on essentially how to grow your business, how to get from that 10, 20K, which everybody can do, to the next 50, 100,000 per month. So you can actually beat your competition. If this is something that you enjoy and if this is something that you're interested in, you can easily follow my LinkedIn. Link is going to be down in the description, where I talk about sales related activities, where I talk about how to actually grow your fund and how to actually make this happen. And trust me, it's not some BS, it's actually real value. Or again, what you can also do is first link in the description, making sure to book yourself a call with us. It's completely free, no strings attached. Most importantly, you're going to leave that with an AI audit on how you can automate your business, and we can take a look at next steps from there. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Let me know your biggest challenge in the funnel right now down in the comments. Otherwise, give it a thumbs up and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers. Bye bye.